Let's do this. Let's get it going. Let's get it going. All right, all right. Just waiting a few minutes for this thing to set up. All right, all right. Welcome to another episode of Rasa Stan Podcast. I have another special guest, my great friend, Ricardo Lozano. I've known this man for a very, very long time. So I'm glad to finally have him on here. Ricardo Lozano is 34 years old. He is pro-peace. He believes taxation is theft. He believes there's no God. And he is a friend to all living creatures. I welcome you all. Ricardo Lozano, you have the floor, man.
Oh, hey guys. How you guys doing today? How are you doing today?
I am doing great, man. I just went to the park right now, so trying to juggle a lot of things, but thank you for asking.
Yeah, man. No, I just came home from work, rushing back over here, but I'm happy to got here in time.
For sure.
So
for sure.
glad to be here.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, I've known you, like I said, for a very long time, probably close to 20 years, right? So
maybe even more. Yeah.
Really. I remember seeing you, on the street thinking, who the fuck is that guy? But, but I think actually being friends and hanging out, I think we were 15 when we met. So almost 20 years,
Yeah.
So,
just starting high school, right?
Yes. Yeah. We're freshmen in high school. Yep. We didn't go to the same schools though. We just lived in the same neighborhood.
Yeah. That's the trippy part. Like I ended up going to a different high school than you guys, even though I lived in the same area, literally like on the same house as one of our other homies.
Yep. So, yeah. How was that? I mean, I know that you went to a different school and I always wondered why. Why did you go to a different high school than us?
It's just the timing of it. Cause before starting middle school, I was living in Palmdale in Arkansas for like 2 years. Living over there, 2 years going to school over there, it's like a completely different world. It was still kind of underdeveloped when I was over there, but now there's more, there's more stores and there's more streets, and it's a bit more populated. Coming back from Arkansas to Cali, I registered to go to Pocoma Middle School, which is the middle school that you went to as well. Mm-hmm. And they were like, no, we're too packed. It's too late. Like you got to go somewhere else. Yeah. It's weird because for like a period in time, like schools were like completely overflown with kids. I mean, the system in San Fernando is very odd to me, even till today. Like they don't have like, what do you call them? They're like sections of like tracks. People like tracks. Yeah. Like tracks. They go like in different times, and then everybody is like, they see themselves in different time periods, and it's like odd.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the way that the school system worked in Arkansas, they were, even from like the beginning of middle school, they were all just one unit. One unit went to one class and then to a different class and to a different class. And it was never like individual people going to individual classes. It was just all the same unit, just going one end to one other class and to another class, which was a complete culture clash of a contrast.
Yeah, I remember even from elementary going to different tracks, and you wouldn't see the same kids all year. You would see different kids. When you came back from vacation or whatever, you would see different kids.
And it was kind of like a class system too, because you see like the I guess the paisitas, how people used to call them, and like track C or something, or track whatever letter or color they assigned to them. But there was like, and then the smarter kids were like in that track A or whatever. Well, because I don't know, how was it in San Fernando? What was the name of the tracks when
we had a similar system? I think the tracks depended on school, but in our system, that track A was the with the kids who were learning English or whatever, right? Track B was known as the party track, right?
Yeah.
All the kids basically just went to parties, and then track C was the track that like I said, the magnet kids, the kids who were
the smarter kids,
right? The ones who were going to go to college. I found myself in A track. I remember that. Found myself in A track and really, it's funny because when I was in elementary, I was in B track. which is, similar. And then when I went to middle school, it was all the same. Everybody had the same summers off, right? Coleman Middle School, where I went to.
Yeah.
And then San Fernando High School had the tracks. And I ended up going to A-track. So, I remember that the connotation, you're an A-track, you must be a paisa, you must, not know the language and whatnot. So I remember that shit. It's cool that you brought that up. I mean, interesting you brought that up, because even within our own people, we had some kind of classism, right? Or whatever you want to call it. Interesting.
Yeah, it's prevailing. I don't know if art imitated nature, if nature imitated art at that point, or if that was just embedded in us from the beginning. But being a second generation born here, you're not either a full Mexican or a full American. You're like in the middle. Some people like to call that like a Chicano, but that's more of an ideal more than anything than like an identity. Well, of course, it can become your identity, but like anybody can become a Chicano if they believe the same ideals. It's not just where you're from or what part of Mexico your parents were from.
That is true. There's white Chicanos, there's black Chicanos, Asian Chicanos.
A lot. Yeah, I've seen that.
Mm-hmm. Especially the people from the Philippines or Filipinos, like because there's a strong connection because of the
Spanish.
Yes, and also the UFW, in Northern California as well.
Yeah,
Chavez and the Filipinos was working together. But yeah, interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah. Yep. No, I mean it's all. I mean, like I said, growing up, I saw myself as a part of you guys' group, but at the same time, more, I guess, what would you call it? Like of an outcast? Mm-hmm. Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean that's why it's called Beyond the Scope. You've been an outcast. You've been an outcast since since we've known you. I would say.
Different school, different culture. I guess same culture, but I guess different outlook on things.
But your school was more diverse too, where you went to school, right? You had Armenians, whites, blacks.
Oh
Asians.
Yeah.
I remember seeing some of your pictures in high school. You were like pretty much hanging out with all kinds of different people,
Yeah, I think that was it was a good thing, because I ended up like seeing other cultures, and like for the first time, I think that when I went to high school, it was the first time I ever saw like an Armenian. Like I didn't know what that was or what type of people that was, and they're chill people. They're actually we have a lot in common culture-wise with the Armenians. If you really get to know some, they're really family oriented. They're very conservative. A lot of the like the earlier years, like the early aughts, early 90s. A lot of them were like almost like Chicanos as well. Like they dress the same way. They kind of talk the same way, kind of.
They also had gangs too,
yeah, exactly. But I mean, it was good, and I saw the good and I saw the bad as well, because you had the clashes. You had everybody had their own little groups. Everybody hanged out with their own like people, kind of like in prison. In prison you hang out with your people. It was kind of like that.
Well, they were built the schools were built by prison people, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, and right now, if you look at my high school, Rodrigo Hills High School, it's gated. Like when I was there, it was never gated. It was really open. People can leave the campus and come back, but people don't have that luxury anymore. But yeah, like I said, like there were everybody was segmented. It wasn't forced. It was everybody was there by choice. Like they hung out with like their own people. And the same thing, I'm contrasting that with my experience living in Arkansas. It was the same thing over there. Like I just hung out with like a group of like Hispanics. It wasn't necessarily Mexicans, but it was like Salvadoranians, it was Honduranians, Guatemaltecos. It was like people from like California and everything. And everybody just hung out with like their own little clique.
And I remember you went there two times. You went there as a kid and you went there again as an adult.
Yeah, so the first time I went there, I didn't go, and I didn't end up going to school there, but I just ended up pretty much just like isolated. Like we were with family, obviously, but my parents were still kind of like finding the footing, and being in a strange place, you didn't know anybody, so you kind of just kept inside, never really came out or anything like that. But I was always, I mean, I'm the type of person that never really like hung out with crowds. Like I enjoy my alone time. I enjoyed just being curious, just going to different groups. Like we're gonna take it back to high school. I used to hang out with my group of friends, but then sometimes I'll hang out with my Asian friends, or I'll do that with some white friends, or hang out with some Armenians at times. I was always like bouncing around, and I think that kind of influenced me in the way that I thought and saw things. Always being open-minded, and always being open to ideas and different ways of looking at things.
That makes a lot of sense, because obviously my experience was totally the opposite. I mean, it was all raza where we lived and where we went to school, and so.
And I grew up in the same place, so I mean, I didn't go to the same school, but it was the same neighborhoods. With the gang problems, and then just coming home to you guys, and so I mean, over there, I didn't feel any, or at least I didn't sense it, like any type of like prejudice, which I'm fortunate to say, like I don't think I've ever felt any type of prejudice anywhere.
Wow.
So I'm fortunate in saying that, even in such a diverse place that I went to, and and also going to living in Arkansas, which is predominantly white.
Right, and is that considered the South or the Midwest, if I'm correct?
South.
South, part of the South. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're dealing with these white Southerners, so I mean, you if anything, that would probably be the place for you to experience that, and you still didn't experience it. And
no, super nice people, very welcoming, very warm. I never felt any type of like pressure or that they were pushed. Maybe because also the way that I kind of like presented myself, I didn't present myself. I was never like
as a thug,
like
no, it's like
no, as that, or like a paisa, or like your typical like Hispanic person. Because there's I mean, I do look like your typical Hispanic person, but behavior wise or personality wise, I don't think.
So what you're saying is a stereotype of a Latino, right?
Yeah.
They would assume as a Latino, right? I mean, certain music or whatever, I can't hear you. I don't know what happened. There you go. I don't know if you were trying to stream the. Hello?
There we go. I can hear you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know. Something happened. Sorry about that, folks. We'll edit this out in the post.
We're not gonna do it because
no, we're not.
It's live. But I will not share that part though. For sure. No, man. But I agree. I mean, I think that's why I wanted to bring up the childhood upbringing, because even being in the same neighborhood, but going to different schools shaped who you were, and even back then, I mean, you were already challenging narratives even as a 15-year-old. I remember that. While I was, influenced by gang culture, you never were, right? And
not really. Yeah.
That to me was really interesting because, again, you grew up in the same neighborhood. You even hung out with us, You're probably the only one who didn't look affiliated like we did, But
I mean, I wouldn't say that I wasn't influenced by it, because, like you said, I did hang out with you guys, and there was a brief period where I was like just dressing in khakis and Cortez and kind of like slick back in my hair.
That was before we were dressing like that. I remember that.
That's true, actually. Yeah, you're right. Now that I think about it.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe I was like an arbiter for that. For you guys too.
You had your little gold chain,
That's I did have my Mary, my Guadalupe chain.
That's a great segue to the next topic, because you used to be very religious. You used to be, you said, I introduced you as an atheist, basically, right? But back in the day when I met you, you were pretty much,
I was a Catholic. I was
hardcore Catholic.
No cuss word, no no drinking, or not doing none of that stuff. I was pretty devoted for like a really, really long period of my like early teens. Mm-hmm. Like I used to pray every night it's funny saying this now, because I haven't talked about it in like a long time. But I used to have like this prayer to my guardian angel every single night. Mm-hmm. I would I'll always pray for like for good things for my family and everybody. And I used to try to go to church consistently. I used to try to like live my life the moral Catholic way. For like, again, I think starting from like 10 years old to like 13, 14 years old. And then all of a sudden so I can correlate that break from the religion from the release of if you remember, the Da Vinci Code. What year was that?
That was after high school, though.
Was that after high school?
Yes. So probably, I mean, you weren't really talking about stuff like that in high school, but I remember being in high school, and I was actually more of an atheist back then than you were. I feel like we went the opposite way,
Right.
I remember we were having a conversation around evolution, and you were like, no, evolution is not real because Adam and Eve, and you can't evolve into monkeys, and I was like, but there's a science though, like.
Let me cut in a bit with that. I did believe in evolution, but I corresponded that with what's that called, the creator theory, or the creator theory, not creationism. What was it called? It involves
somebody doing all that.
The idea of evolution being manipulated by a creator. Like it was done like that because the designer theory. I'm sorry, that's what it was.
Okay.
That it was designed that way because that's how the Lord designed it to be.
And that's what I believe now. I mean, I think that's where I'm at. But I already had that conversation about that. I don't want to get into that myself, but so
futile.
What you mentioned the Da Vinci Code. I mean, what even inspired you to read that as a Catholic when you're like, man, this is blasphemy. Why am I even reading this?
I don't know. I really don't know how I got around to read that book. I know a lot of people look at it now as like, oh, it's just a silly, badly written book. But to me, when I read that and I saw people challenging like the church, challenging the whole narrative of that piece, as the church is trying to hide the real, it's trying to hide something from the public. And they're trying to prevent this idea to get out, because if it does, it'll completely destroy the way they see the church and see the beliefs. So they were trying to guard it with such ferocity that it could be world changing if that idea got out. The idea, which was that Jesus had a son, or Jesus had children,
and a bloodline, right?
A bloodline, yeah.
Yeah.
And if when in power, if your power is challenged by an idea or person or anything like that, then you're going to do whatever it takes to conceal that. And just me, and I know it's fiction, it's a fictional thing, but it made so much sense to me. And then that's when I started to be curious about the churches and what are they really trying to hide. And that's when I went down this rabbit hole of discovering like all these like controversies, and it just opened up my mind even more. Like things that I never thought could be questioned or challenged. And then once I went down that path, I grew out of that, and it kept reading like atheist literature, like Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and others, and I forget the other people's names right now, but it completely changed me. And I've always been a fan of science. I always loved nature and animals, which is part of my bio, that I love all living creatures. That kind of gave me that encouragement to pursue the truth of reality, of nature and everything, and it bloomed from there.
What's really interesting is that I've never read that book, but I remember you were telling me all about it, like every time you would read a chapter or whatever, hey, you got to check this out, because I would debate with you. I was like, nah, this is not true, this is bullshit,
Yeah.
But it's really interesting how in your like this book is based on Jesus, right? Who is, for some people, it's like, well, he never existed, right? There's the historical Jesus, there's the religious Jesus, there's the Jesus the God, right?
The Holy Son, the Spirit, the Father.
Right. So for there to be a book about somebody who is even controversial, or to some people is fictional, right? It's kind of interesting, right? That's, I don't know if you understand what I mean, like that.
Yeah, well, it's blasphemy.
Yeah.
Pretty much it's blasphemy. You can't, Like, there's no question. Like you can't question this because there was like I think that's how I got to how it got into my life, like because it was so controversial. People were just talking about it on a consistent basis when it came out, and I got curious about it and picked it up and read it. I'm trying. The timeline's a little iffy because I don't remember if it was what started it or if I was already on that path, and that kind of like just pushed me over the edge. Because I think that's what it was. I'm thinking because I'm bad with like my own personal history.
Yes.
So
I think I'm better. I think I'm better at keeping your own personal history.
Yeah, because I really don't talk about myself too much, so I don't keep track about my like what happened like 20 years ago. But I know that being a pivotal moment though, like reading that book just really pushed me into the I guess the atheistic movement of that time.
But before that though, you were a Buddhist. I remember in high school you were a Buddhist for a long time.
So okay, so now that you brought that up, now I'm kind of remembering. So before that, I guess I was kind of like trying new things. And there's another book that I read, which I don't remember the title of the book, but I remember it was about kaijus, which was it was about a dude who used to love kaijus, which are like the Japanese giant monsters like Godzilla and stuff like that. And because there's an art to filming movies like that. You know, people used to actually make just these giant rubber suits and then be on it and film it, which sounds very ancient by today's standards. But they used to do that, and that book was pretty much basically about him finding peace in Zen Buddhism, and the kaiju aspect of it, which is Godzilla stuff. I love. My G-Man is over there, which pushed me towards that. So it's funny seeing like something so insignificant like a pop cultural icon pushing you to a religion, which is really Buddhism to me at the same time. Yeah, it was Zen Buddhism. And I read about it and I decided to practice it. I decided to meditate, decided to kind of like...
Even your diet changed.
The diet changed. Yeah, that's right. I went like vegetarian for almost like two or 3 years without eating meat. And I lost a ton of weight when that happened.
You were skinny as me at one point.
Really skinny as shit. And I almost died because I accidentally ate like a piece of ham, and that completely fucked my system up.
I remember you were like, when I go pee, my pee smells like honey.
Yeah. I don't know why I used to always say that, but it did. It was sweet because it didn't have the toxins of fucking McDonald's and Burger King and all that shit that you find on today's like fast food meats. But yeah, I just, that drove me into that. And okay, so that was the start of my road to atheism, because that it wasn't much of a religion, but more of like a practice of just self-discipline and just meditating and looking within yourself and being aware of your surroundings and kind of follow this mantra of peace and nonviolence, which is where I get most of my beliefs till to this day. Like I'm a pro-peace guy. I believe that you shouldn't commit any type of force to an individual is completely wrong. You should not be doing that. And if you do, well, I do believe in self-defense. So if you come at me, I'm gonna come at you, but I'm never gonna start it. Or
peaceful warrior.
Yeah. That's actually another one.
Yeah. Now I know that for a while when we made the transition, I think that's very common for people who make transitions or find something new. You even see this with born again Christians, right? When they become really, really religious, they want you to indulge in their ideology and believe what they believe. I remember for a while you're pretty dogmatic when it came to atheism. You would challenge people who are religious, you would make fun of them.
Yeah.
So also a lot of satire too, but go ahead.
No, like around the same time, I think I was going through my liberty phase as well, because all that correlates to being a sovereign individual and being not being forced with anything. So when it comes to what you brought up earlier in my bio, like I'm a taxation Left, and to me, I believe that's force, because if you don't pay your taxes, what happens? You get thrown into a jail cell. And if you resist, if you try to defend yourself from the people who are trying to take that money from you, or trying to like, get some payment off you, when they're going to come at you with guns too, and you resist, they're going to kill you. It's death. Like they will literally kill you if you don't pay your taxes.
I agree.
So that mantra mixed in with my like Zen Buddhism beliefs and my liberty beliefs. So it was all like a perfect concoction of the time being, which I was bringing up to, you were talking about. I'm sorry, I completely derailed myself. What were you saying earlier?
I'm saying how you became dogmatic with atheism. It almost became like a religion to you.
That's right. Yes. So, at the time, like the online forums, there was this movement, this atheistic movement, which was in the early aughts. It was just like, it was also during the time where a lot of the Christian right was in control, and you were getting a lot of like censorship stuff, a lot of push for Christianity, a lot of push for like prayer in schools and everything. It was like during that time, and and it was also during the time of like Grand Theft Auto 2, which is a pivotal point as well, because when that game came out, Grand Theft Auto 2, like you're getting these senators, like these right-wing senators, trying to ban it because it was too violent. If this is for children, this is going to corrupt their children. The violence in these video games are going to translate to real life. And it was also during the time of like of the Colorado shootings, the early 2005,
and 9/11 too.
Yeah, that was a little bit past that, but yeah, during that time, and just people were just up in arms. Just how like the left is now trying to control your speech, trying to censor stuff. The right was doing it. Yeah, which was what was happening during the 90s, during that period, where they were trying to censor music, they're trying to censor video games, they're trying to force you to like salute your flag and be proud and prayers in schools and all this shit. So that when that happens, when there's like a culture shift of a certain ideology, there's another ideology that's going to push back, which was the left at the time, which was the atheist left.
Yes.
The atheist left, and which is funny to say now, because a lot of atheists aren't really. I guess you can call them atheists, but they're more tolerant to like intolerant.
They're more libertarian, I would say, today.
I wouldn't say that, but
I mean, not libertarian in the sense that they're politically affiliated with the Libertarian Party, but just their ideology, like like do whatever you want and shit. Basically, they're not trying to force their ideology.
Yes, but at the same time, they're trying to kind of like uplift these religions. Like, for example, one of the big ones is obviously Islam, the religion of Islam, which is true, yes. Contrary to the belief, it isn't very liberal, to put it lightly. It's not very.
Not at all.
Yeah, there's some interpretation, and I know it's not all the same. Some interpretations of the religion can't be attributed to like the extremists, and then some are more passive, and it depends on how you look at it. But in general,
well, I would say most religions are not liberal at all. Most religions are very strict and they have rigid rules. So I mean, they're not liberal at all. So.
Exactly. Same thing with Christianity, like not very liberal. I mean, you can argue it's more liberal than some others, but it's still from the same from the same well.
I mean, they're not going to kill you if you unless you are part of these extremists. But I get what you're saying. You don't have right-wing extremists who are Christian and go out and murder people for not believing in Jesus or whatever. And in the Middle East, you do have. These extremists.
You kind of see it. Yeah. People wanting kind of that because they keep bringing up the crusade, like these these dummy right wingers, like these alt writers, like constantly showcasing like their crusade shields and their crusade knighthood helmets and everything like that, and that was a very violent takeover of everything. Like they try to convert everybody by force. And you kind of see that wanting to happen, but luckily we live in a country that we're able to defend ourselves. So if that ever happens, we got our guns for the time being if they want to do that. Forces for the religion.
And I would say that with the Crusades, that's where that started. This rivalry between Islam and Christianity.
Yeah,
that's where it started, and it's still going on today.
Yeah, I mean, not just Islam, but like the Gypsies, Jews, anything that it wasn't Christian at the moment. The pagans, a lot of the pagans got the short end of the stick with that one as well. I mean, that kind of carried over to like the earlier American colonialism stuff, the Salem witch trials and everything. Like paganism was like really, which is funny because it's like a lot of like the customs come from like pagan religions, Christmas or the Christmas tree or like a lot of Christianity stuff, which was co-opted obviously by Constantine during the Roman takeover, and his push of Christianity on the Roman people, and to kind of like soften the blow, he brought a bunch of the customs into the Christianity and kind of like blended it into what we have now.
Yep. That happened. And what I was going to say, I completely lost my thought. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Like I know I'm like all over the place.
No, you're good.
That's how I am. Yeah. But so going back to my atheism, so we went on a long rant. But yeah, coming back to my atheism, like I was militant because at the time it was the pushback to the religious right, trying to take more power or trying to push themselves into power more at that time. But a lot of them were really edgy. They were really just dumb, which is why it ultimately that movement failed, because not only was it taken over by the more leftist ideals when they try to I forget what year, I think it was 2008, when there was like some like atheist conference, and somebody made a comment that it wasn't inclusive enough.
That's where it started.
That's where it all started. It wasn't inclusive enough because they didn't see other races or other people. And it's not that it was meant to be that way. It's just that's how it started. Because at that time, I think YouTube was kind of becoming big as well. It was early YouTube. A lot of atheists, like a lot of atheist channels, a lot of atheist videos were being uploaded to that. And again, contrasting that to now, that was like the alt-right of that time, I guess. I don't want to correlate them with being alt-right, but saying like the more like controversial videos, the more controversial ideas, which was at the time atheism, came up to popularity, and it did its job, and a lot of people started to join that movement of atheism. But then you got these high academics now coming into like the atheist movement,
postmodernists,
and the postmoderns coming in and kind of fucking it up for to put it in lighter terms. They didn't see.
Always fucking shit up.
It's just no. It's not academics. I don't blame them. It's just the postmodernists, the people who believe that what they believe.
Believe nothing's real.
Nothing's real. There is no rule. Like, we are moldable and manageable, which you can believe that. That's okay. But we believe in a world where there is rules, like whether you like it or not, like natural rules or just in everything. Like there's always a history, a structure, or what would you call it? Just
there's facts. I mean, there's absolute truths, and postmodernists, like you said, believe everything is malleable. Things can change, from sex to, I mean, I'm sure in a couple of years you're going to hear race changing. People are going to be able to, because they say that race is a social construct. I'm honestly kind of shocked that people are not saying. I mean, you have some individuals. Like, I was watching this video with this guy who was a British guy, clearly a British guy. He did some surgery and he identified as a Korean woman.
Yeah, I saw that. I know what you're talking about.
So I mean, and by that same logic, if you're going to use the logic of, I can change and I talked about this earlier in one of my other episodes. If I can change my sex or my gender, why can't I change my race? If you're going to use the same logic, but there's a lot of pushback from that. right? And I think the issue is power, though, the power dynamics, because a white person turning into a minority, you already have that. If you believe in the hierarchy of power, you already have that power, so you shouldn't be able to do that, right? As opposed to somebody who wants to be a woman, right? You're kind of losing your male privilege, if you want to call it that, right? So it's almost like, okay, you're cool, you can come to the woman's side, so it's encouraged, especially with men becoming women. I think it's more encouraged.
The only reason it became an issue was because he was white. Like, no other reason. Exactly. Like, if it would have been somebody else, some Hispanic dude or some black guy wanted to become a Korean, it would have been congratulated. So strong, so brave. But because it was a white dude, it was shit upon, like, oh my god, look, he's now whitewashing the race, or he's fetishizing the race, or whatever.
Culturally appropriating.
Yeah, culturally appropriating the thing. And I mean, this is by your own rules, by your own accords. Like, you said that there is no rules, but then you put on these rules. So this is where, like, the postmodernism ideas fall into pieces, because you're trying to set rules where you're trying to push no rules. So it is clear that you want to push your ideals, your rules, because if you don't follow the postmodernist rules, which is not having rule at all, but having rules, it's like I can't even wrap my mind around it.
And then that's where I lose a lot of people, because I would say it's more common with Gen Z, right, or just later millennials, who are more accepting of a lot of these ideas, and that's where I feel like I don't relate to them in that way, because I like to believe in absolute truths, whether they're controversial or not. I don't care. The truth is the truth.
I honestly,
it's crazy
I'm
how.
Not... No, go ahead.
I'm saying that it's crazy how the truth has become controversial.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not against people having the choice to be whatever they want. Like, honestly, that if you want to be Korean, be Korean. If you want to be a woman, be a woman. Just what bothers me is when they try to kind of force that it's okay. It's okay. Like, I accept people for who they are and what they want to be and what to be looked at. But when you're trying to make it a law where I have to call you by a certain thing or acknowledge you, when you're trying to force, this is pretty much like my point, like being anti-force. Like, when they're forcing you to call you but by a certain name, or to even punish you if you incorrectly misgender somebody or misrace somebody.
We're not there yet, but we will be eventually.
Yeah. So that's the issue that I come across. Like don't use the same government that you're against to push your own rules. I mean, that why are you giving power to the same entity that has been oppressing you? But now because you're trying to, like, again, it doesn't compute. Like, I don't understand the whole meaning. Like, why can't we just live, be, let be? Don't try to push your ideals on people who don't even care what you are. You know what I'm saying? True.
And it's also, if you think about it too, this is what comes to my mind, right? When I deal with something like that, I never really actually had somebody, say, hey, you're misgendering me, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I don't care what you want. If you're an adult, do whatever you want. It's all you.
As long as it's consensual and doesn't harm anybody. Cool.
Yeah. But when you try to compel speech, like you said, I mean, you try to force people to call, it's just weird to me. It's like, how insecure are you that you need to have me reassure you that you're that?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like if I walked around every day and somebody called me, I don't know, Filipino, or somebody called me, Guatemalan or whatever, I'm not going to be like, what the fuck? Don't call me that. You know what I mean? You need to call me a Chicano every fucking time you see me. I am a Chicano. And that's it. So, I mean, most people don't even call me that. Most people, are constantly I don't know the term, misracing me, like calling me, most people don't even know I'm Mexican or Chicano or whatever, because of the way I look. Yeah. Most people assume something else, so
Mongolian.
Yeah, whatever, right? So I don't even care. I mean, honestly, even though I know what I am, like, I don't need you to reaffirm that. So when it comes to that, it just shows you that these people are so insecure about their identity or so unsure about it that they need other people to confirm them. You know what? Yes, you are. And that's just weird to me. Like,
what's weird to me is it's not like they want to be represented in a way, or they want to be acknowledged through pop culture, but not through like everyday life. But because they have this belief that pop culture drives how people the culture. Well, pop culture drives culture, which in part it is true. But when it's forced like that, and you're using these companies that you're opposed when trying to push your ideals, it just makes it seem fake. Like when you have Tide pushing gay pride, when you have fucking Tide, like fucking detergent pushing your ideals, when you have
corporatism.
These soulless corporations that you hate so much represent your ideals, and you're cheering it too. You're cheering those ideals. There should be a red flag right away when you see that, like, oh shit, maybe we shouldn't be dealing or giving this power to them, which now they're turning around and selling back to you. So now you're buying their products, seeing their TV shows, and taking part of whatever it is that they're pushing. But it just degrades your whole movement. Like it is now a joke.
Yes, I agree.
Unfortunately,
anybody who believes these companies actually give a shit about you,
they don't give a
I don't know what to tell you
about you. They don't give a shit about your money.
Exactly. So they're like, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and then that's capitalism. I mean, it's going to drive. It's a weird combination of capitalism and kind of like the social movement. And it's going to try to cling on to whatever movement there's at the time to make money off it, to profit off it. And you have to be aware enough to see that that's what's happening, and to kind of move away from either fucking supporting these companies or even like these ideas that are no longer valid because they've been taken over by Tide.
They become corporate. I agree with you. So I want to move on to the next topic. Since this is a podcast and I've been doing it now for a while, but you were one of the original people who told me about podcasting and what it was. And, back in the day when you were listening to it, it was, I don't know, how was it? I mean, how did you even get into podcasting yourself?
So I've been listening to podcasts since 2003. This is I see funny when people commenting me or bringing up like references to Joe Rogan and like, oh shit, these, like, it still kind of like shocks me. Like, oh, you're listening to podcasts? Which is not a common thing. Everybody, it's like TV now.
It is.
Everybody watches or listens to a podcast, and there's billions of fucking podcasts because it's such an easy medium. But yeah, I was listening to podcasts 2003 when they were by phone. You have to call in to like a station to like listen to because it's again 2003 early internet. It was what 556K, less than that, not even broadband. So in order to get anything, you either had to have like a good connection or just go to the library, which is what I used to do, and just like listen to these shows. And it wasn't like a format at the time. It was just people talking, and it eventually grew into once the development of the RSS feed came through. That's when now you can like subscribe and get your podcast automatically to like these different there used to be called podcatchers. Used to be like these central places where you can just like subscribe to a podcast. Because now it's just iTunes, Spotify. Everybody has like their own podcast subscription. But back then there was nothing. There was just podcatchers. Or if you had like the specific like application that can kind of like read RSS feeds, you just put in the RSS feed and you have to manually update them every so often. But yeah, I've been listening. I've always, again, being a curious person, just listening to different things and ideas. And I used to listen to like talk shows too, like on the radio. That's what kind of like drove me into podcasts. Whenever those talk shows weren't on, my favorite talk shows, like I actually used to listen to Tom Likas, which is, I think I'm not sure if he's like a lefty or a righty. I don't remember, but I just love the conversations, just listening to conversations, to ideas, and people just giving out their opinion, which now you can just go anywhere and you can hear anybody's opinion at all times, every day, single day.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But podcast 2003, first show that I've ever listened to. I think one of the first ones was called Distorted View Daily, which is a really, it was a comedy podcast, and it's really not for children. Like really, I don't know if you guys want to look it up, but it's Distorted View Daily to kind of get a taste of what it was, and it's still going on. It's still going on to this day. Wow. Yeah, it's still going on to this day. Wow. And it's daily, so it's like every single day. So, and shout out to Distorted View. And then from there, I mean, I got into more comedy podcasts, and I think that these comedy podcasts is what kind of developed my sense of humor, my dark sense of humor.
It definitely did.
So it influenced big time. Yeah.
I used to get mad at those podcasts. I was like, man, it's fucking shit.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So yeah, it was Distorted View. It was Nobody Likes Onions was another podcast that I really listened to a lot, and the main one that I loved and really got me mostly hooked into like the whole medium was Red Bar Radio, which to this day I still listen to. Right now he's Mike is absent because he's going through some health issues, but he puts on shows that are 8 hours long. Nobody does that. He's the only like person who does that. Just puts like an 8 hour long episode, and just once a week, just 8 hours, boom, listen to it in chunks. And it was pretty much it's just making fun of people. That's the whole podcast.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's just making fun of people and just like looking at certain individuals critically and just watching them, and it's fucked up. Honestly, it's really fucked up.
It is not for the faint of heart, right?
Yeah, but from those edgy fucking comedy podcasts, grew like the years after that. NPR got into like the whole podcasting thing, and they started coming out with their own shows. I still listen to a couple of All Things Considered is a good podcast that I listen to, and they bring in, and NPR obviously is considered a lefty organization, and I love those shows. Because I like the way that they're produced, and they bring humanizing stories from people from different sects and different views and everything, different races. They'll do like it's more in depth journalistically. So you'll listen to a certain, like if if one of the hosts wants to do like a podcast or like a journalistic view of like a country or something, they'll do that, and they're really good. All things considered, really good. Freakonomics was another good influential podcast that I used to listen to a lot. So this is pretty much just the economics of everything, because if there's any universal truth, it's that math is the language of the universe, and you can apply that to anything. You can apply the economics to anything, whether it be to race, whether it be to friendships, and whether it be to the way you live or try to live. You can all apply it to math, and it can be seen as that way. And so the Freakonomics used to bring these stories and these just like these articles into like a cohesive podcast that you listen to, and you just learn a bunch. And they're really entertaining, well produced, and they're really good. And now those gave birth to what we have now. Joe Rogan being the one that everybody loves and knows. I mean, he started just with a computer, a laptop, and just his comedian friends just talking. And he's consistent. The thing with these podcasts, they have to be consistent, and he was consistent, and eventually grew into this fucking powerhouse that we have now. That he pretty much is the media.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. People listen to him more than they listen to the news, And what I like about his podcast is the numbers show people, that are knowledgeable. That he's not, and he's bringing in people that sometimes don't even agree with them. So I really like that about his podcast. I learned a lot. A lot of the people that I follow now, people that I listen to, are because of Joe Rogan.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I love when he brings in like the scientists, or he brings in specialists from dietary specialists, or just conservatives, not conservative, but people who will who try to like to save certain animal species and everything, like conservationists. I'm sorry, that's the word I'm looking for.
Big difference. They're all the ones that are trying to kill them, you know.
Yeah. So it just listening to these episodes, like it's fucking great. Like right now we're living just in a golden age of media. Like we're able to listen to so many different things from a range of topics, whether it be nature or the psychology of people, the world news, the politics, toys, video games, like all this stuff. Like there's a podcast for everything, and true. You just have to look for it. And I kind of like that you have to look for it, because that means that you're passionate about what it is that you want to be involved in. You look for it, and usually there's a community behind it, and it kind of like pushes up that aspect, which is why podcasting is so cool, because it creates communities. It creates like these just individuals who probably have never live across the country or whatever, bring together. Like Red Bar Radio made me travel to Chicago and meet all these strangers and people that I never met before, and we were all friends until this day. Some of them still, I still follow some of those people, and I still keep in contact with some of them. Like one of my good friends is actually, I met him through the show, through Red Bar.
Wow.
So I mean, it's like, this is why podcasting is so important, and it's like the best medium right now.
I agree. I agree. Even with my platform, obviously it's not huge, but some of the people that I'm in constant contact now are people who follow me or listen to my podcast.
Yeah.
So when I started doing my thing, when I was still co-hosting with Brown, I let him know a lot of the stuff.
Shout out to Brown.
Yeah, shout out to Brown. Have you seen this? Or you're gonna see it later. When we started this idea, I let him know, hey, like some of the stuff we're gonna say might offend people, might, they might disagree with us, but the reason why I started doing podcasting, and I've said this a lot of times in other episodes or just lives or whatever, is because of all the fucking narratives that we hear out there on the news, especially about us, and how we're oppressed and how we don't have any saying in things, any voice, and I'm like, that's not true. We just don't know how to use our voice. We just don't know how to use these things that are available to everybody. We just, like I said, you don't go out looking for it. If you don't go out looking for it, you're not going to find it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so easy to just stay in your comfort zone and not go beyond that, which unfortunately a lot of people do that. They don't try new things, so they don't go beyond what they know, because they quote unquote don't seem interested in it. But how can you not be interested if you haven't tried it? So I'm glad that like we're talking about this, because I do want to let people know that just go outside of your comfort zone, travel, talk to people you've never met before, try new things, listen to new things, or read a book that you just were curious about. Just, you have to be open to things, which is why I don't, like, if you know me for years, a lot of people will consider me like a conservative or whatever, which I'm like the opposite. I would not consider you that at all. Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. Like I am not that at all.
Not even close.
Not even close. Physically, maybe. Money wise, like don't
fiscally conservative. Money. Yeah, fiscally conservative. I think a lot of us are leaning towards that. We'll get that in a second.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good just to go beyond, again, your skill, I guess.
There you go.
Bring it back to this. Fuck. There you go. Bring it back to the title of the show, or the episode. Just to try something out. Like, don't just hate something because everybody else hates it, or don't just disagree with something that just everybody will disagree with. Like, have the courage to cut through that and kind of like voice your own opinion on it.
Yep.
Like, if you see something or some idea that's somebody's spewing and you disagree with it, say something like, okay, or at least question it. Like, why do you think that way? Why are you looking at it this way? And then kind of like putting your own view into it. Obviously, do it respectfully. Never fucking just go and be a snob. That's old me. That's like new atheist me, when I was just challenging everybody with their beliefs and It's funny because that actually did help me tone down my views on like religion, because just talking to people, like not everybody's out to convert you. Not everybody's out to convince you that you're wrong, that science is wrong, and that God is your only savior. You're burned to hell because you don't believe in him.
That is really interesting that you brought that up, because I feel like if this was happening in modern times, or if you could go back to that time, it's almost like you were one of these postmodernists who are fighting the system, or patriarchy, or whatever. You were so into your idea, right? And when you become so tribal, you will defend everything about, you become fanatic.
Yeah, well, you become, your whole identity becomes that idea. Like it's no longer an individual thing. It's what my sports team thinks.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm only a fan of football, and that's it, bro. And that's enough. That takes a lot of my energy. I'm not going to be a fan of anything else, so.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because I think that's the only. So sports is probably like the only thing that I'll become nationalistic about. Yeah. It's like my only outlet. Like if I see like, which I love to clown on people with this, like Mexico versus USA. Like I'll cheer for USA and be like these nationalists, like, I'm a cold-blooded American, whatever, hot-blooded American, just to piss them off. But it's the only like war or tribalist thing that I would like apply myself to, because like with the Packers, even with the Packers, I love the Packers and I'm always going to be on their side and I'm always cheering for them, but I'm never going to be that person who says, oh, they're the best team no matter what. Like Aaron Rodgers is better than Tom Brady. That's bullshit. Mm-hmm. That's not true. But I'm not. But there's certain people who would be like, no, my team is always going to be this, and they're the best, and you can't change my mind. That's what I don't want to become with non-sports. Like I'm okay doing it in sports, but not with reality.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. Like I said, because as a fan of football, and specifically the Buccaneers, who've been losers for years, just recently they won, but it takes a lot of your energy, man, to be able to invest that much time into something, especially if it's not, and I'm referring to people who are really ethnocentric, or, the feminist type, or the postmodernist type, or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times it's not going your way. So you're going to be pissed off a lot of the times, and it's just going to waste a lot of your energy. You know what I mean?
Catch a lot of L's.
So yeah, you're going to catch a lot of L's, so it's hard to fully continue to invest in something like that and be happy. It's counterproductive,
Yeah. And honestly, and the best way to go upon that, if you really are for an idea, or do you really want to push an idea, is to lead by example. Not to fucking force it onto everybody you see and be antagonistic. Is to lead by example, be the best that you can be that, show your pride, have your gay pride t-shirt or trans shirt or whatever, but don't be antagonistic. Don't be offended to every single little thing, every single little nuanced thing that people do. Just live your life like how you want to live your life, how people want to treat you, treat them. It's just. And then that's how you accumulate. That's how you slowly take over the culture, and you slowly kind of appropriate the idea that you want to push, or that people that react badly to it because you're antagonizing them. You're pushing them into a corner, and what else can they do? They'll attack. Exactly. They're going to attack, and they're going to oppose you now. Now that you set up boundaries, now that they're on this team now, so now it's going to be a you versus them thing, and no amount of reason is going to break that anymore, because you've pushed them too far to that corner.
It's no longer logical. It becomes a defense mechanism. It becomes a me versus you thing, like you said.
Yep.
And that's a good segue into our next topic. I know when Obama first ran for president, you had your own ideas and your own opinions about who you were going to vote for. I remember I was like, no, we got to vote for Obama. He's going to be the first president. Yeah. Using identity politics. Obviously, I didn't really know his policies or what he was going to run on or whatever. But I voted for the guy. I still did. But you were very, very specific about a specific candidate, and you sent me a couple of videos about him, recently, as to why, reminds you why. But this also shifted how you I wouldn't say identified politically, but how you registered. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so you're talking about the 2008 election when Obama was running for president, and he was all the hype. He was the first, I guess, half African, half white, but still like colored individual who was running for president, and that stood out it stood out because it was the only one. Yes. But so this is coming off Bush as well. So people were tired of the old white Republican tyrants. Mm-hmm. You know, I would call it that. So people wanted a change, which is what when he ran on that platform of change and hope.
Yep, that's how you got me, bro.
And it fucking and then that iconic piece of art of him, the black and white, that which kind of contrasts to kind of like how the Soviets and Russia did their silhouettes and the way they do it. Okay, but yeah,
a reference to that,
sort of, yeah. But so that went, I guess, viral. Like his image, coming off from Bush. The people didn't want another just white dude ruining the country, going to wars that we did not need to go to. But in the midst of all that, I saw somebody who caught my attention, and the only one in that class of candidates who was running for that was actually against the war, against bombing brown people in the Middle East.
Pretty much, yeah.
The only one, and then that was Ron Paul. Paul, I was such an advocate for him, so much so that I registered myself as a Republican to not only donate money to him, but to vote for him and to support him in any kind of way. Like that era, that time. I like you were mentioning earlier that I was sending you videos because I was looking back at old interviews and I'm like, we fucked up when I like voting him in. Like we fucked up big time. And then there's memes of it online that you can find, like the Doom Ron Paul, the Doomer Ron Paul. But dude, we messed up in not getting that man into office. We really did.
He was almost like a Republican Bernie Sanders, I would say. You know,
in a way, he kind of started that. He kind of like started the grassroots.
Yes.
Advocation. People at the time, he was like, people were the younger people, especially the military vets and current military people at the time were sending him money. We're sending him money to his campaign. A little dumb Mexican kid sending this dude money.
Old white guy.
This old white guy, because I believe so much in what he was saying. Like he was the only one who actually brought up issues of challenging the feds, ending the Fed. That's one of his main things. Like he wanted to end the Fed and change the monetary policy. Nobody brought that up. Nobody mentioned it.
Nope.
There was no mention of it. Not Romney, who was also there. Fucking Mitch McConnell, which I think he was running as well at the same time. Rudy Giuliani, which he got fucking obliterated in the first debates, and he just dropped off. Completely. McCain, yeah. Oh, dude, that Gio. It's funny because at the same time, so Rudy Giuliani was coming off being the mayor of New York when the attacks happened. He got bumped off by Ron Paul because his policies that he was putting out were just this fucking hawkish war hawk. Just we're gonna go there, we're gonna attack, we're gonna make them pay for what they did. The mayor of New York during 9/11 lost in the debates to Ron Paul when he completely obliterated him on all fucking topics that he brought up. Like I mean, people have to go watch it. If you haven't seen it, go watch the first debates with Ron Paul and Rudy Giuliani and see how badly he got destroyed by him. So much so that he dropped off like after that. Like his polling went down. Nobody gave a fuck about him because he was completely destroyed. And he did the same thing with Mitch McConnell. Like he completely destroyed him because Mitch was running for obviously the Republican side, but I guess Ron Paul just brought up the fact that he never served. And how can you advocate to send your children, to fight a war when you yourself never served? Like how like what is
chicken
it
hawks.
Just exactly, chicken hawks. So he got obliterated with that. But again, he was bringing in monetary change, monetary policies. He wanted to end the Feds, which nobody was like talking at the same time. He anti-war. He was non-interventionist. Never wanted to go Afghanistan, and at the same time, well, during that time there were in Afghanistan, but he voted against it. He even voted against raiding the day that they actually found Osama bin Laden and they raided the village he was at. He even voted against that. That's how consistent he was with his voting. Like, yeah, and he was the only one of the few congressmen who voted against. I think he was the only one, probably. So he was anti-war, pro ending the Feds, civil just keeping your liberties. Like he was against the Patriot Act. He voted against the Patriot Act as well, which was unheard of at the time for people to vote against that. Only very few people voted against the Patriot Act. So he was just ahead of his time, and can they even think about it now? It's like, dude, it pisses you off. Yeah, it pisses me off. We fucked up because we're never gonna get somebody like that ever again.
That is true.
It was a once in a lifetime candidate that's fucking y'all fucked up.
I remember when you told me about him, and watching his videos, but I was just too into Obama that I was not even really listening to.
Yeah, it's unfortunate too.
One thing that stood out. One thing that stood out about what he said. I remember this video you told me that you sent me. I think it was during one of the debates. How he even talked about that. I think the Civil War, right, or something like that, was a mistake, or we could have avoided the Civil War if we would have done. I forgot exactly what he said, but even to go back that far,
yeah, history, like learn from history.
Yep. So that was pretty interesting. Now, as like I said, you said as a little Mexican kid, whatever, or a young man, whatever, being a Republican back in 2007, 2008, it still isn't popular, but back in that day, it was probably even worse because most Republicans were associated with white supremacists, white old men.
Yeah.
You were voting for a white old man. So
yeah, it was during the time where
that's when you really stood out. That's when you stuck out, and I was like, bro, what are you doing? Like, you're train your own people. Like, I was one of those people that was telling you that. So I mean, how did you stay, on that lane and still continue to think?
Well, I didn't care because that was what I believed. That's what I saw was true. Like, I never. I guess we can go to this. Like, I never really identified. Knowing me, I don't like labels. I don't like calling myself that I'm this or I'm that. I'm a gamer. I fucking hate that label. I'm not a you can call me libertarian, but I will never call myself a libertarian. Only like in description, but I will never like consider myself a libertarian, like a Republican. I never bring it up unless topics like this happen. Like, oh yeah, I'm registered as one, but I'm not really a Republican.
But you're a Packer though, right?
Oh, definitely. That's the only label that the only label, Green Bay Packer fan. But it's just like I'm a contrarian to a point as well. Like I never like going to. I never like going or doing what the crowd is doing. So I'm always questioning that, which is a good thing. Sometimes I will just go along, but most of the time I'm like, why is everybody going over there, or why is everybody doing that? Like I was always questioning things, and in that time, again, hearing his ideas and just agreeing with most of what he was bringing to the table, I'm like, why isn't anybody like this? Makes sense. Like, yeah, okay, it's the first Black president, but what is that gonna do? What does that have to do with anything, with policy? With anything? I get that kind of gave like a moral boost to the Black community, and to this day, like I go to people's houses and they'll have framed pictures of Obama, which is the weirdest thing.
Like Black Jesus, or
right next to Black Jesus, Obama.
Yeah.
So and I get that was a push, but you would think that you want the person to kind of like back that image up or the idea of him. I know the idea is still like he was a good president and everything, and he was presidential. He was a good speaker, but he wasn't I guess when it comes to a position of like power like that, I don't think you can be a good person, regardless of what you do. Because you have to you can, but you can try and try to change it. But most of the time, you're going to have to make tough decisions or are not going to be moral. Unfortunately, under his reign, you get the people who voted for him which I'm assuming Democratic people, and mostly Democratic people or Democrats are either Hispanics or just minorities, pretty much. A lot of their base is minority base, and he was one of the presidents who deported the most people.
Oh yeah,
I don't have like stats combined. So I don't have the stats in front of me, but yeah, this is brought up. Like he deported a bunch of people. I think during his administration, I think ICE came to power more than already has. He was the arbiter of that, and obviously the drone bombings, like a lot of the bombings in Afghanistan were on his watch and his call. And it's funny that he got nominated and got the Nobel Peace Prize.
That's ironic.
Why exactly did he get the Nobel Peace Prize?
Eloquent speaker, that's why. The guy, it's hard to hate him because he's just a very. I don't hate him. I never hated him because he's so likable. He's such a charming, handsome dude. He's what you want in what a president should be. Yes.
But not policy wise, just the pure vanity of it, the pure. But again, it's just, and then he just did a lot of shit. I mean, during the time the economy grew and kind of slumped up a little bit from the recession that was going on during the Bush era, but that was bound to happen anyways.
Yes.
So
housing market.
I don't know. I don't see why they put him in such a high pedestal. And I mean, I get why, but
I think any politics.
Logically, like you wouldn't. Like you just read what the shit that he did.
And that's why I had the live yesterday when it came to the Gavin Newsom thing, because I mean, people, like you said, people are hearing the announcements of whatever you want to call it. I call it propaganda and rhetoric, about Newsom and why we should vote for him, because if we don't, this is being led by Trump supporting Republicans and yada yada yada.
The Republicans are trying to take over,
and it just goes to show you how stupid they think we are, as individuals. But a lot of people just don't do research, and they listen to that and like, oh shit, and that's the case, and fuck that, I'm gonna.
And unfortunately, probably like that won like 60% of the vote. Unfortunately,
exactly.
Because they see, oh shit, the Republicans will try to take over. Hell no. We're going to do everything in our power to like keep the state blue, and not actually listen to the policies that they're trying to bring in. It's neither blue or red. It's just we trying to fucking make California a better place to live. It doesn't matter who's in charge.
Yeah, but people
that's how it should be pushed. But I get people are part of parties and affiliations and ideas, and obviously
tribalism.
Fucking it never is going to work that way. But it's so funny. I'm like listening to Pandora, and then you get these pro Gavin Newsom ads saying like, oh, the Trumpists and the big business oilers are trying to take over, and no, just like the Trumpists and the big oil companies are trying to push the narrative that the Republicans are trying to take over. Help us stop that by not recalling Gavin Newsom.
Of course, because they have a lot of I think Gavin Newsom, he was supposed to put some kind of buffer between oil wells and homes or whatever, and he didn't do it. So that I'm gonna support that, obviously, because that means you get to build more stuff. So
so it's just again propaganda and bullshit, and it's funny because a lot of people who are against him are this very same people that voted for him. They saw his incompetence, they saw his hypocrisy, getting catch red-handed when he was mandating
and the shitty excuse or
mandating face masks and making it mandatory. You can't get out of your house, you can't open your business, but he's out and about partying with his friends with no mask, close vicinity. And this is during the time that I think the vaccine weren't even rolled out yet, so he wasn't vaccinated.
Yep, and even with the vaccine, he himself was very hesitant at the very beginning. He said he was going to take the Johnson & Johnson, whether he took it or not.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
so I mean, it's just
straight
it's
fucking hypocritical.
Yeah, and I should be more in tune with local politics, which I'm not. I know there's a few people. I know that like the governor from like San Diego's running. I forget his name, Faulkner or something like that. And then there's obviously Larry Eldridge.
Larry Elder. I've been actually following him for a while. Actually, he's more libertarian, I think, than he's a registered Republican too. Obviously, but he's he's more libertarian, I think, with his policies.
Yeah, I don't know too much about him. I did see an interview with the Sacramento Bee interviewing him, but I didn't really get too much of what he's about. So I should, my fault. I should be more knowledgeable about it. But there's two other candidates, but they're all, again, these like nerdy, scrawny loser Republicans that if you're gonna put somebody up against Gavin Newsom, at least don't bring these fucking losers to go up against him. Because you got the movie star Gavin Newsom, fucking slick bag, handsome motherfucker, and then you're putting him against some nerdy fucking. And I get the ideas is what's supposed to push the policies and everything, but you have to match that. You have to match it with somebody of more charisma, or I guess Eldridge does.
Elder definitely has the charisma he's got a lot of followers,
yeah.
And he knows his shit too. He's lived in California his whole life. He's from LA. You should definitely look into his story.
Yeah, I'll look him up. But
and for those who like to play identity politics, he would be the
first black man.
First black governor.
So go vote for him. Go BLM.
There you go. But what was I going to say? Going on to the next topic. Good segue. You're obviously very involved with I don't want to say very involved, but you're knowledgeable about politics, right? And when you and I would get into heated debates, usually it was over economics. Back in the day when we were younger, I was more socialist, left leaning, and you've always been a straight shooter with capitalism, and more specifically, an anarcho-capitalist. Right. So some people might say, what the hell is that? I mean, how can you be for anarchy and capitalism? Because a lot of the times people identify capitalism with exploitation and, slavery and all kinds of stuff. But you are a big believer in anarcho-capitalism. So can you let people know what that is and why you believe in that?
Yeah. So anarcho-capitalism pretty much means a free-range capitalism, like no rules, no restrictions. Just let the markets be. Let them. Whatever happens, just they will eventually by themselves correct themselves. Because if you're say a company that uses slaves and it's looked upon them by society, they're not gonna. I mean, even if you make the cheapest and coolest thing, they're like, this is immoral. We're not gonna support you. And other people are gonna bring bigger ideas. Hell, the progress of inventing robots and having that as labor, and now you're using human slaves, like, no, I'm going to go with like the people who do our products with robots and stuff like that. But it's pretty much that's what that is. It's a unrestricted capitalism, or free, just allowing the free markets to just govern themselves. Because when you start to mess with capitalism or with the free markets, it's like nature. Like if you fuck with with a certain biome, like if let's say you have a grassland and then you have a ton of rats that you want to get rid of because you can't plant your corn or whatever, you introduce snakes to that ecosystem. So now not only do the snakes eat all the rats, but now you have a snake problem because there's no natural predators. Because what I'm getting at is you're fucking with something that it's almost like a natural thing. Like you can't mess with it because unintended consequences are going to happen, like the black market when it comes to either banning certain things. Because if people want it, people are going to get it, and there is no law or no force that's going to stop it from happening. So that's pretty much what that is. It's just unrestricted capitalism, unrestricted letting the free markets do their own thing. Some people find it. I'm at that point in life, but I'm like, I do still want that, but I'm kind of like scale it back a little bit and not jump into it too much. Like let it little by little. Like when it comes to like the natural resources and stuff like that, we kind of have to like be a little bit more mindful, because you don't want war. You don't want the companies going to war over certain minerals or certain natural resources. So in a sense, see, I don't want to say this, but like you do need like a little bit of like government control when it comes to certain things. And I wouldn't have never said that like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but I've gotten to that point whether like the thing is, I just don't know because we're getting so advanced, our technology and our advancements and in the way that we do things are growing so rapidly. Like I don't know how we're able to do, because I mean, even the internet, social media coming as rapidly as it did changed the whole landscape of capitalism and making money. Because now we're not mining for oil, we're mining for people's data. So
interesting point. So like the chat is on fire right now with that. You know, somebody it's been all over. So somebody asked right now, they said, where has anarcho-capitalism been successful? So can you give us an example of it ever happening?
I mean, even within certain things, like if you look at China now, they are like the less restrictions that they apply to capitalism, to the free market, the more successful they have become. Like even if just you need to just pull back a little bit, and allow it to groom. Obviously, there's never been anarcho-capitalism being practiced anywhere in the world to that extent.
Yes.
You can kind of go to Hong Kong, or maybe the closest thing would be Hong Kong, because Hong Kong, being an oddity, being a port city, they allowed free trade and they allowed unrestricted capitalism there for a while, and Hong Kong became like the city back in the early 80s and 90s. It boomed, and China saw that happening, what's happening there, and they took the car from that. They took the idea from that. And like that's why China now, it's like such a big thing. Like even the smallest like peelbacks of control of capitalism or the free markets can do wonders. So imagine if you just let that all, just peel all that and just let it flow, let it regulate, let morality be controlled not by governance or by fucking companies, but by the people. Let morality grow within us, our own culture. Like let's become this peaceful culture, because when your needs are taken care of, when food's taken care of, when housing's taken care of, when all that's taken care of, like you're not gonna go out there looking for a fight, because you have all the shit that you need. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I mean, the argument that I see a lot of socialists use, or opponents of capitalism, is that, because you kind of use it there when you talked about morality and stuff like that. I mean, that capitalism is immoral, right? That it's not, that it allows for exploitation to happen, it allows for people to, be murdered, so how would you I guess push back against that, or say,
well most of that is
result of capitalism, or is that a result of people?
Well, most of that is driven by governments. Like when it comes to like what I was talking about, like in the situation in the Middle East, how the reason that they were there. I mean, it's not so secret now, but they were there for the oil. They were there for the ability to get that, and it wasn't capitalism that did that. It wasn't capitalism. May be the driver for it, because the politicians were like in business and they had a business, so they used government to attain that. They used government. It wasn't Exxon, or it wasn't fucking Shell going over there bombing Afghanis. It was us through our democracy, through our own means of voting these people in and representatives in behalf of us.
Yeah, so but Shell didn't have a problem with it either, though. Yeah. I mean, Shell didn't have a problem with them taking that oil, because it also benefited.
Oh yeah, it benefited them 100%, and they were liable to flee, because it wasn't them. It was the government cronies who did that.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, and also when you think about this, is a thing that I always bring on whenever I hear what has capitalism done, or the evils that, because the way we created these companies, these humongous conglomerates companies, is because the government protects them. They protect them. They protect their monopoly. They protect their and most of the time it's like in cahoots. Like whoever's in power, there's people who have stakes in certain companies, and they help them out, buddies. That's what you call crony capitalism. When you have certain politicians who have stakes in companies,
yes,
making policies to benefit them. So this is what you need to weed out, and it's not the fault of capitalism for doing that. It's not its fault. It's these people fucking using it to gain the power, because capitalism is such a driving force. It's such a growing productive thing that people can use it to do bad. Obviously, like everything else, capitalism isn't perfect, but it's the only system that kind of corrects itself, that always comes back and becomes reasonable. Like nothing else does that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I would say too. Chronic capitalism, like you said, too much government interference, and the reason why I made my shift from, because like I said, I was a hardcore socialist. You remember me, going at it with you, so many times, and you've been consistent with your ideology or just views or whatever. But I think what really got me to make that shift was, I think socialism as an ideology is a beautiful ideology. Even socialist ideas are actually not that
it's
bad,
very appealing,
especially for younger people, because I mean, who doesn't want to help people out? Who doesn't want to see people, not dying on the street?
And right? You can have that in capitalism. Yes, you can have that. Yes. You can still have that.
Yeah.
It's just the way you promote it, the way you do business with people. Like you can have that. It's not forced upon anybody. I mean, if they want to do it a certain way and you want to be ethical in how you run your business, you can do that. And if it's successful and it shows that it's actually making a difference, and it's not a part of like slavery, or a part of like poisoning your rivers or whatever, and you're doing a good thing, and if it's successful, it'll fucking grow and it'll become the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, you decide who you support, right? So a lot of us probably out of convenience will support, cheaper things, obviously, especially if you don't have money, right? You go to Walmart, right? But you have the conscious effort. You make the conscious effort if you really want to, to not support those companies, right? So I have made it an effort more recently to go, especially during the pandemic when everything was fucking closed except these fucking huge corporations.
Walmart, Amazon, Rite Aid, Walgreens,
exactly.
GameStop for some reason was still open.
Going back to government interference, right? I made it an effort to go and support these small, moms and pops places or taqueros, go and support your local restaurants, because these people needed that money. And also another reason why I also took a step away from socialism was because everywhere in the world, every example of socialism, right, with the exception of China, and China is a combination of both, and we'll get to that in a second, has not worked. Yeah, you can argue that because of, United States interference and not America. You can argue because of the embargoes or whatever, but even in Eastern Europe, Asia, right, it's ultimately failed, and not because of the ideas, but because of people who take power, right? So, and I mean specifically socialism, because socialism requires government. Right.
Yep.
So when you give everything to the government, when you surrender everything to the government, you are at their will. So at any moment, they could take away your shit. If they don't like how you think, if they don't like what you believe in, right? As you see in North Korea, right?
Cut you right off.
Even in Cuba, what's happening now, right? They just say, okay, well, fuck you. You know what I mean? We're gonna get rid of you, and that's it. So I understand people who are communists, because communists doesn't require government. Right. But will we ever get to a place where, we have no government, even when anarcho-capitalism, I mean, that's a big push too. I mean, it's so far beyond the scope again, right? That I don't know if we'll ever get there. So,
baby steps.
Yes, exactly. Somebody said a mixed economy is the way. And I think we kind of have that here sometimes, especially, in situations of dire need. We've had, socialist ideologies implemented, but at the end of the day, I think what we have here in the United States is more like corporatism or chronic capitalism, not really.
Yeah, it has evolved into that. Yes.
So for those who are more socialist leaning, I would say that's my biggest critic. It's like the government usually that takes power, right? It's through force, and once you get that power, you're not going to want it back. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're never scaling back. You're never scaling back. I mean, just look at California again with the mandates and everything. Like people, now that they have a taste of power, they want, now they're going to force you to do more restrictions, more mandates, more everything. And then one big thing I wanted to add with that is the reason that we have these giant companies, the reason that we have these monopolies is because, again, intellectual property. Like I'm a big proponent of. I am against intellectual property. I'm against of having an idea be owned by somebody, because it's going to sound kind of hippie-ish, but you don't own an idea. Once your idea is out there, it's no longer yours. I'm sorry.
That is true.
Like if you make a piece of art, yeah, and you can try to stop it. You can try to use the government to bully people into trying to stop and trying to make profit off your idea. But this is the problem. This is why we have these huge fucking companies, because they're being protected by these intellectual property laws.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't like make let's say a second-rate Amazon, call it Amazon. Hopefully, try to confuse or kind of you can, because Amazon will get on you with lawyers, destroy you. Like, and it goes back to like with art and with music and everything. Because I'm sorry, if you're truly like a communist, and this is my most, like, I guess, commie idea, my most leftist idea is the idea that intellectual property rights should be abolished. Like, I don't believe that you own ideas. Once an idea is out there, again, it's no longer yours. But this is how we get improvements. When people copy, and eventually somebody gets they add their own flavor to that copy of that idea, it becomes something new. With music, look at music, how has especially hip hop, how has it evolved from taking samples or copying or taking things from other music and then incorporating into themselves and making something new and beautiful from it. It's one of the most expressive genres of music that there is, and it's all done through taking what other people have done and incorporate it into its own style or its own self.
Mm-hmm. That is true. I mean, you've always said that too, especially with music and stuff like that. And this was a big issue during the transition from CDs to like, music being sold on Apple and stuff like that, because a lot of people were selling people's music, on the street, like those bootleg CDs, and people were making a killing off of that, or what, not a killing, but they were making money off of that. And they were, reprimanded for that. They were arrested. They were, given tickets or whatever. And I agree with you that anybody should be able to start their own business without all these fucking government regulations,
any regulations or any restrictions or licenses or anything like that. As long, just let your reputation speak for you. Like, if your fucking food kills people, then people are gonna know that this place is not gonna. Yeah, they're not gonna come to your damn fucking restaurant. And I get there should be like rules, but you let the free market set those rules, set those standards. A perfect example of that is with like electronics, like with our phones. Like, no, the government didn't come and say, okay, the phone should have a power button, should have this, should have this type of email app or anything like that. The standard was set by whatever company put that forth and was successful. In this case, Apple, Apple. I mean, one of the first, not the first smartphones, but one touchscreen was the iPhone SE, the first iPhone, and it was the first one that you're able to touch, and they had an email app installed in it and everything, and then Google copied that and then started their own thing, and now it's become the most fucking owned devices, or with the Android software or Google phones.
Yes. So I have another question.
And they came copying from that. Yeah.
Another question from Dust James. He's asking, so where does the incentive to innovate come from under, I guess, I'm assuming, this form of capitalism?
Yeah, well, when it comes to somebody making work, everybody wants, like, for example, podcasting right now. What is the incentive when there is no money from it? It's to have a different idea, to have a different voice, or just to do it for fun, like passion. When did passion not become? When did the passion did not become a driving force when it comes to innovation like that? People are not going to stop making stuff if they're not able to make money. They're still going to do it. Isn't that the whole point of art too? The whole point of art is not to make money, is to show expression and to push boundaries and to challenge narratives. That's what art is. And you can make money. You can sell it on T-shirts. You can, fucking put yourself higher to do murals or whatever. Like, there's different ways of making money off your art without necessarily having the right to it or the intellectual rights to it.
Yes.
Because plus, when people start taking your shit, that means you're doing something right.
Exactly.
So that's gonna cause a reputation. Like, oh shit, I'm gonna start heading to the original owner or the creator of this art, and hiring for something,
or buying his ideas out,
or buy his ideas or something. If you want to support that very same art style that you like, you support that person. And you can now with like stuff like Patreon and PayPal. You have all these ways of contributing to people with not necessarily having to be working for somebody else. So it's pivotal.
Yeah, and also what I would argue too is that with socialism, you have a fixed income. And I think we're seeing, previews of that now with the pandemic and with unemployment, right? When these people were given a fixed income, right, with unemployment, and you had so many places where they couldn't find people because, well, why would you go work if you're getting more money with the fixed income already with the unemployment? So people, if you give people a fixed income, they're not going to be motivated to go out there and create stuff or work if there's no point to it, right? So I'm like,
Not
this is
work. I
probably
mean,
the
I wouldn't
closest.
say create. I said that they wouldn't motivate to go to do a shitty job that they don't want to do when the same amount of work time and pay they'll be getting from doing like they're flipping burgers is just staying at home playing video games. It's like, why would you ever
Exactly.
do that?
Exactly. Right. So I think that's the closest we'll ever get to socialism here. You mentioned
Yeah.
it. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I said I was gonna segue into, because you kind of mentioned China, right? And
Oh
I think
yeah.
China is a lot of socialists will argue that China is one of the few
Successes, I guess.
successes. But I would argue that China is a mixed example of corporatism, and socialism on steroids.
Yeah. I don't think
So
I don't think these people want to take China as like a championing their causes or whatever ideology they're facing, because right now they're doing a bunch of weird shit. So it is a self-proclaimed communist country, yet the distribution of money is unequal, as always. They're one of the fastest growing economies, but yet they still have the poorest living situation when it comes to per capita for people around the individual countries. Like their people are so poor, it's insane. But even though like they're again making big gains in their gross economical finances, like, and then you're going, and again, you don't want to bring up China as like to show like, oh, this communism works, socialism works, this is the proof of it. No, I mean, what you're showing is China committing genocide, and forcing people to change their religion, which is, I think people on the left are against that. They don't want to force people to do anything.
They don't criticize China though when it comes to that,
which is weird.
Yes.
It's very weird because
Yes.
Again, I have a couple of like I not stats but notes here regarding that. Like over 1 million Uyghurs, which is the native Muslims there, have been detained in so-called re-education camps in Xinjiang, which is a region northwest of China. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty much a nice way of saying they're in concentration camps. Yeah, so there's evidence of Chinese, the CCP going in there and forcefully sterilizing women because they don't want them to reproduce and make more Uyghurs. So they're fucking. Again, wow. They already did this with their one-child policy. When they first started that, they did not allow anybody to have. Well, they only allowed people to have one child, and that's it. But that's also that backfired badly on them because now they're like in a population decline, and they have no women in China. So for every 10 men, there's like one female. Wow. There, so so that's why they're importing, and they're importing Uyghurs too, Uyghur women to kind of forcefully breed with Chinese because, I mean, they're in the dire need of women, and their population is getting older, but no young people to take care of them. So that backfired, and now obviously they reversed that. Now it's a 3-child policy, so you can have more than 3 children. So this is China again, being the ethno states that they are, trying to control the population and try to manage that. You can't. This is nature. You can't control these type of things. So yeah, I mean, you got the leading human rights advocate groups like Amnesty and Human Rights Watch publishing reports accusing China of war crimes, crimes against humanity. And then I have a source here which I'll send, and you can post it up there later. And it's just it records like all the horrible shit that they're doing to the poor Uyghur population. Human rights groups have voiced concern that much of the cotton exports picked by forced labor in that region by the Uyghurs. And in 2021, some Westerners brand removed Xinjiang cotton from their supply chains because there was evidence of them using slave labor to import. And then Xinjiang, or that region, is like the one of the top exporters cotton. It's like 70% of the world's cotton comes from that place, and it's all slave. Most of it is slave labor. leading to a backlash against the brand from the Chinese celebrities and netizens, of which China is always trying to control its image through the media, because all the state-run media there is state-run. Like there is no free media, there is no Facebook, there is no social media there. Whatever is there is the Chinese version of what we have here, but they control everything. In the early 20th century, the Uyghurs briefly declared independence from the region, but it was brought under complete control under China's new communist government in 1949. So they were independent for a while until the Chinese communist government came in and took over, and that's when the encampment started and the slave treatment. So it's been going on for years already.
Yeah, and Dust James here, I've seen his channel. He's been pretty vocal here on the comments. And I see this a lot from a lot of people who support socialism to say this is not true. Like this is false. Somebody's written this. So it could be true. I mean, I think it's partially true.
You got partial human rights advocate groups.
Yeah, I mean, not entirely. I'm not saying that everything is. But what I mean though is that every country obviously will try its best to
the U.S. sheds no criticism from this. The U.S. always tries to do that and always try to spin. And I'm not saying that the U.S. is the angels, but when you caught up to like horrible shit that we would never support here in the West, it's like they're doing stuff like that. So I mean, if you want to say that it's not true and you want to turn a blind eye to the poor Uyghur population there, then do it. But I mean, it's happening.
Yeah, and that's where I think my biggest criticism comes when it comes to that, is that if you are going to be against oppression or about uplifting people, but you're also trying, like I said, turning a blind eye to that, then
you're just as culpable. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm like trying to like support them, because I mean you could support the advocacy groups that they're going there and they're trying to help. So again, the link I'll send you, they'll have some like donation posts if you want to do that, so that people can donate and try to kind of right the wrong there. But it's not going to happen if we keep supporting these Chinese imports. And again, China is making a hard move with using economics or the economy to expand. I mean, already we have them taking over the video game industry. Like a lot of Chinese companies bought like a bunch of Western gaming development companies. You got Activision. So I think like a certain percentage is owned by Chinese by Chinese money. Mm-hmm. So you got Activision, you got Tencent, who's trying to take over as well with the gaming world. They're buying a bunch of small developers, and it's people say that who cares? So what if they're putting in money to the game industry, or if they? I mean, then what you're getting is these games are coming out. Like for example, I think there was a Call of War, the Call of Duty trailer where there was like some soldiers who had like Taiwanese emblem here, and obviously China doesn't consider Taiwan to be an independent country, which it is an independent country. Yeah. So they force, using their leverage, ownership of the company, to remove that. So they removed that, and it's something else, some other bullshit thing that they added there. But there's small things like that, like little by little, it'll just keep increasing. Like in the Olympics, look at the Olympics right now. Taiwan, they won several medals, they won several golds, but they didn't win it. They didn't want it as Taiwan. They wanted it as like the Republic of China or something. I forget what bullshit name that they forced the Olympics to name them. So they couldn't compete with the country's name. Taiwan. They couldn't compete as Taiwan. Do you believe that? Like that's how much power they're now holding, that they're forcing even something as prestigious as the Olympics to not even name them as a country. And then if you do accidentally say that they're a country or the Taiwan one, the Chinese media goes after you like a fucking like an escaped slave. Like they'll come at you and they'll slander you. They'll put their wolf brigade against you.
All right, so give me a second. My light is going off, but keep talking. I'll put another battery on it. Go ahead. I'm gonna
not a problem. So
I'm gonna put my video on pause, and then Just keep talking. All right.
Yeah, so it's a concerning issue that we have to, as a people, we have to kind of partake and see and kind of try to do something about it. Because even me, like I don't really care about like sides or politics or whatever, but I see this as like a big growing danger, and we need to like really pay attention to what's happening in China. Like they're I mean, they're already, before the US retreated from Afghanistan, China was there. China was there talking to the Taliban leaders, God knows what, trying to make an alliance, try to like construct a government with the aid of China. You know what, another government that has the aid of China? North Korea. And the reason that we haven't done anything about North Korea is because China is backing them. Like we can't go in there and try to help these people. There's literal genocide going on in North Korea as well. But we can't do anything about it because China is there defending them. Well, they have a stake. So, and the U.S. is scared. They're finally, China has finally gone big enough that they don't want to challenge them. But I'm glad that there's certain people. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of good YouTube channels kind of keeping an eye on it. If you want China Uncensored, it's a good channel that you should be watching if you want to hear out the news that's happening in China. And China in Focus is another one.
Okay. Oh, what happened to your video?
I'm sorry.
I'm watching you. Yeah. See, I didn't know. I mean, I knew about some of the stuff you mentioned. You know. Can you hear me or what? I can't hear you. I can't hear you at all. I can't hear you. I can't hear you what you're saying. I can't hear you. I don't know what happened, but his sound went off. You know. Oh no, he's frozen. Can you hear me? Nah. I'm gonna see if you can hear me. Well, anyway, while he was getting his audio back, you know, I'm gonna read some of the comments. Those who are in the live, you know, making comments. I'm gonna give us some shout outs to some people. You know, Dust James. I've seen your channel. I've listened to it. You know, a couple of times. You know, good stuff. I see Quantive, thank you for coming in here and supporting as well.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
can you hear me?
It's all good. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, my phone died and then fucking did all these things and
damn.
China, man, is trying to shut me down.
Anyway, we can talk about China, you know, and all that, but I do want to cover you know, the last topic for today.
Yeah. And please let me just add this. Please,
yes.
If I said anything wrong or anything inaccurate, let me know. Like
yeah,
I'm not, because I know I'm stupid. I'll say sometimes things that are not incorrect.
You're not stupid.
But I'll own it, and that's how I fucking learn. Just let me know.
Yeah. Somebody said I learned a lot from my ex about China and seeing him make moves.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was just speaking to one of my, I guess, one of my Chinese friends, or she's from Laos, or her family's from Laos, which is a communist country as well, in China. But yeah, she was saying like when she traveled there,
a socialist. Socialist
Laos.
country.
I think Laos is
communism. Communism does not involve government.
I know, but that's how they.
They call themselves communists, but they're not actually communists because as a communist, you can't.
Socialist driven government.
You can't have a government. That's why.
Right.
That's what I always tell people. You know.
The narco aspect of it, but you know what I mean. A socialist government that call itself communist.
Yes.
But she was talking about how it was weird when she traveled over there that they check your phone. Like when you get there, they got to check your phone. You can't have these apps here. You have to use their own apps. Like they're really restrictive. Like we can and can't do. Obviously, if you have more money, you're a little bit more lenient. But like they won't even show, because they used to show the BBC and stuff like that. And the only places I used to watch the BBC over there is in like hotels for foreigners. But even then, because BBC has been so critical of China, they outright just don't show it anymore. Mm-hmm. So they restrict what you can see, what you can listen to. It's China internet, so you can't go past that, whatever it is that want you to see or hear.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that even here, with freaking Instagram and Facebook. If you say something that's, that goes against, for example, just the vaccine right now. If you're saying anything that's negative about it, they block your ass too. So I would say that happens in every country, but every country wants to give its best image to the world. So that's my only pushback when it comes to that. But I wanted to end it on the, the pendulum swinging, right, from left to right. You kind of brought this up earlier during the episode, how the left has now become the new right. And that is a statement to make. And why do you think that is the case? Or why do you say that?
Well, the left used to be about, freedom of speech. It used to be about freedom of choice. But now all you're getting from them is, like you were saying, with the company, like a lot of these companies are a left-leaning. They have a left-leaning motive. If your ideas do not align with their ideas, they will either outright ban you or just not push your content. Again, like I was saying earlier, censoring, a lot of censorship is happening now on the left. You can't say certain things. And it's not even like racial things. It's not even racial. There's certain ideas you can't spew out any type of criticism of certain individuals or certain ideas. You can't have, because they're oppressive or they're supposedly what's the word I'm looking for? Violent, I guess. Like now, speech is violence. So if you say something,
even silence is violence too now.
Silence is violence too. Yeah, if you don't say anything, that's violence. And
yeah,
I'm not for that. I mean, I'm for freedom of speech. I'm for having ideas be exchanged. I'm for people talking and figuring things out. Not this banning bullshit of shutting people off because they don't think the way you think they should be thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, you're seeing it. Like you used to see, like, I was brought it up earlier about the '90s, how you got the Christian right trying to ban certain video games, try to ban certain content, violence. They're trying to ban hip hop in the early '90s. How there was a big push to kind of either limit or prohibit the sales of explicit material. Funny enough, now they have this happening, and it's now the left doing the banning, the left doing the censoring, the left doing certain things to kind of like to control what you can see or hear. Which kind of sounds like what China is doing.
Going back to China, right?
Like, yeah, I mean, it's just like they're so afraid that certain ideas will get out and catch like wildfire. If you're so afraid, then your ideas are not working. Then what you're saying are not working.
Good point.
So if I'm not saying it's a good idea, that's the shit that's happening. I'm not saying that, like, all this right-wing bullshit from these fucking incels is the correct thing and it should be incel. It just, if you have ideas, fight them back with your good ideas as well.
Yeah,
don't censor. The more you censor, the more you push them into a corner, the more the more powerful they're gonna become, and the more rampant they're gonna become. I don't care how many channels or how many people you banned. They're gonna come at you. You're just driving them. You're just driving them into the shadows, and that makes them more dangerous because now you don't see where they're coming from.
Exactly. And that's why it is very important to engage in conversation and not fucking shouting matches or you're this, you're that. Once the name calling starts to happen, then you lost somebody. You already lost like you said, your idea is not that powerful. You have to call somebody stupid, or you have to call them a racist or bigot or whatever.
You strawman arguments to attack the person, not the idea itself.
Yeah. So, I agree with you, and another reason why I guess I was a leftist at one point too, but another reason why I feel that I've strayed away from that again, because once the postmodernists hijacked the leftist movement, I was like, yeah, I'm not fucking with that. I'm not dealing with again, there's no absolute truth in things, and I can't be pushing something I don't believe in. You know what I mean? So and it feels like that, even where I work, for example, I'm pretty sure you probably have dealt with this. Maybe you haven't, and hopefully you don't. We kind of mentioned this, the whole, pronouns and stuff like that. Again, I don't care what you call yourself, right? That's not my issue. But once you start to try to compel it, then it becomes a problem for me. I don't like being told what to do or what to say. Clearly, you know what I mean?
Yeah, nobody does.
Yeah. So, there's this thing that where they're trying to have people use your personal pronoun in your signature, email signature, and they're trying to make it uniformal. I'm like, okay, I get the intention, but my sexual identity is not a big part of my identity. So I don't feel the need to put it in my, what do you call it? Email signature.
Email. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now what if I said, well, I think we should put our racial identity, or I think we should put our cultural identity as part of our signature? I mean, what does that have to do with my
It's going to be just a paragraph of things you have to put on there.
You know what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't have, it doesn't affect how you work. Yeah, some people want to be called certain things, and like I said, it doesn't matter. I mean, if somebody says, hey, I'm not going to be called that, what I try to do, because I'm gonna forget, if you look like a dude, and you identify as they or whatever, I'm going to forget. I'm just gonna be honest with you. So what I do now is just try to call somebody by their name, especially if they have.
You better not dead name someone.
Wait, what?
You better not dead name someone.
What do you mean dead name?
So dead name means like if a person has transitioned,
Mm-hmm.
and if you call them by the name that they were given at birth, then that's not good.
Oh yeah,
of
course, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, I heard about that. No, what I mean though is that somebody still identifies as, I'm using the pronoun they, because that's a big one right now.
Yeah.
But they still, have the name they were given at
and
birth.
It's fine. To me, I think that's such a non-issue. Like the pronoun thing, like putting it on your email or whatever. It's such a non-issue. To me, the issue is just the control of language.
That's what I'm saying.
How I mean, like I don't care. I would put that on my Instagram profile or whatever. Like it's meaningless. I get, but I do understand that certain people, it is who they are, which is kind of odd. Basing your identity on your gender, which I'm not going to comment too much, because I don't understand when somebody, like for example, someone who's born male transitions to a woman and wants to dress and act like how the patriarchy sees women to be.
Yes.
So I don't know, like I don't know if it's genuine. And then you got the non-binaries, which I think are more I guess
ambiguous.
More, yeah, because they don't play with the roles or how gender should be looked at. It's just they're just their own thing, which is great. But again, when you're having these extreme transitions of somebody wanting to look like the gender that the prevailing society has applied to that gender. I don't know if I explained it correctly.
No, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's
like dressing up like a girl, like
kind of ironic,
long hair, and but then acting like a caricature of what that's supposed to be.
An exaggeration of it.
An exaggeration. But again, people have their own things. This is why, if it's a construct, then it shouldn't even matter then in the first place. So I mean, just do what you do, dress like you want. If people criticize, fuck them. They're always going to be criticizers of when somebody brings something new to the table, somebody's always going to say shit.
Yeah, how you look, how you speak, what you wear. I mean, this goes back to
you can apply that to gender. You can apply that to race or to identity. Like when I go to a party and they don't see me as like, oh, you're not Mexican enough, or you're not a paisa or whatever. That's kind of almost the same. It's kind of almost the same thing. Like I don't identify. I don't care. Like cool.
It shouldn't bother you. I mean,
it shouldn't bother you. It's just okay. You're part of a tribe, and then you're criticizing me because I'm not part of your tribe.
I don't want to be part of your tribe anyway, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, if that's going to be the case, if you're not going to accept me for who I am, for what I do, it should not matter.
And when you emphasize like identities like that, and you make it a thing, then that's how everybody else, and that's how you're going to look at other people, and that's how people are going to look at you, and you're just creating a divide, even a wider divide within people, especially when it comes to like race theory stuff. I know it's a hot topic right now. Schools are beginning to, or teachers are trying to push this curriculum of race theory, and schools, parents are fighting back, and they don't want this because I've heard. I don't know too much. I've read just
critical race theory.
Yeah, I've seen that certain schools are like separating children by race.
What?
They're separating like classes by race.
I don't know
which
what's
is
happening.
Yeah, they're doing that, and I'm like, this isn't this segregation? Like, I get it's not segregation because it's part of
the real life experience.
Because they propose that it's not segregation, so it's different when it becomes from another people of the same ideas. But like they're separating students by race, or they're not allowing certain people to like cohabitate with certain other people of a different race, which is like odd to me and very. I'd be appalled.
This is news to me.
Yeah, Again, I'm not too. This is what I've just heard with some of like the news articles and talking heads, but and then they're doing that, and also they're teaching like just a completely inaccurate side of history with no basis in facts.
Well, what I would say is that they're not teaching the wrong side of history. What they're doing is they're focusing on all the atrocities of the United States, which, you can decide whether that's a good thing or not. But my issue is not so much critical race theory, right? It shouldn't be an issue if you're just teaching history, right? Because things happened. I myself was a historian and I teach it, for a living.
Yeah.
Every time I teach, for example, we have somebody in our lives who's always talking about colonialism, and decolonizing and how it happened. You've seen him, he's been in our lives a couple of times. And I'm gonna give you a shout out. I'm a Sheikah warrior for always talking about that. But I've told it because I've had personal conversations with him myself, outside of my lives. And I told him, I was like, what happened to Raza out here is not the exception to the rule. It is what happened everywhere in the world. It's just so recent here, right? If you want to teach the history of, I guess every culture, every nation, and you want to use facts or whatever you want to call it and just keep it raw, right? Then you would do the same thing with, nations out here, because the narrative is this: the Europeans came over, they slaughtered a bunch of innocent native peoples that were perfect and had no flaws, but it wasn't like that though. I mean, for example, again, the big reason why the Mexica lost to the Spanish was because they had a shitload of enemies, because they outnumbered the Spanish, right, by themselves. If it was just the Spanish who came and conquered them and just beat the shit out of them, they
would have no chance.
They had no chance because they had, obviously smallpox played a huge role too, but I heard the numbers were somewhere around like 75,000 to 100,000 native allies. So if you have that many allies, then you must have been doing something wrong for people to hate you, your own, quote unquote, your own people, right? But then again, this concept of all natives were united, that's not true either. They were nations. They didn't see themselves as native people. They called themselves the Mexica, the Maya, the Yaqui, whatever. So that is also a part of colonialism or whatever you want to call it. So I'm okay with teaching critical race theory, whatever you want to call it, but I think you should also teach it in a way where it's everybody though.
I think it's just labeling it that way and just calling it that and having a more of a like this left-leaning focus on it of just like race and making it do your thing, making it the whole. It's like whatever happens to just being people. Like whatever happened to just identifying as a human being and not as what you claim to be. Like, yeah, I get that we come from. This is the beauty of this country, and again, I'm not a nationalist, but the beauty of the idea of this country is that we have so many different cultures and peoples intertwining, and everybody takes a little bit from one culture, a little bit from the other culture, and hopefully the good things, and then just stop that and just like, oh no, this is my culture. I don't want to take in any other influence from any other cultures and just claim it that as my identity, and just because you're pretty much just putting yourself in this just in this road. It just leads to one path, and you're not exploring the many paths that you can be taking. you know. When it comes to like enjoying their culture, I mean, there's nobody is stopping anybody from enjoying their own cultures. Like,
No.
Yeah, nobody's against that. What people are against is trying to make it trying to make it like an infighting thing, like making whites versus blacks. This is pretty much what I think of as
tribalism.
Yeah, tribalism. Again, coming back to that, it's just, and again, it's like the way that you're applying this, like separating children by race, by not allowing white kids, or little white kids, not to have like as much recess time as like the little black kids or something. I don't know. It's just something that I think probably is going to happen down the line or something. But like, it's just weird to separate ourselves like that. We're supposed to just melt. This is a melting pot. We're supposed to meld in.
And the irony behind that,
like Kendrick Lamar said, "Fuck your ethnicity, fuck your race, fuck your culture. just meld in into just one thing, and just let us all just fucking enjoy what we should be fighting for, is just our freedoms and our liberties, and just fucking live our own lives without any type of fucking infighting." Like I don't understand.
And I think the problem comes because of connotation of words, right? So a lot of people, when they hear the term American, they associate it with white, because even Black Americans don't really call themselves American unless they're a little more patriotic or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the problem with words, the connotation behind them. But I mean, that's why, whether you want to call it America, the United States, whatever it was back in the day, doesn't matter to me, really. I was on point with you because before I was more ethnocentric. I wanted to have my own nation because of the things that I learned. Like you said, I was there too. I've been through
the transition.
It's all taught. Yeah. Yes, it's taught, right? I learned it, and that's why, as an educator myself today, and I still teach this stuff myself, but the way I teach it is not, these are the bad guys, these are the good guys. I teach, okay, this is because kids will always ask, well, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? I'm like, there's only bad actions and good actions. And even that is controversial in itself, but things happen. And because of that, we're here. So now all we could do, today is try to, take advantage of the opportunities that we do have, whether we have really bad cards that we were dealt with. A lot of us probably have them, but that doesn't mean we can't rise, right? And it goes back to capitalism, whatever, if you want to use that as an example. And for a lot of us, we never had any property. We never had, we've been losers of it. And that's why a lot of us don't like it, because we have not benefited from it historically.
Yeah, our culture is never of accumulating, property or accumulating wealth.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of living the moment, partying. I'm not saying everybody is like that, but most of the Hispanic culture is just be chill, work hard. It's never like, again, to save money or accumulate or for a house or something like that. It's always just work hard, shut up, work hard, don't speak out. And unfortunately, it's done damage to us. Luckily, again, it's not all. So we do have people who rise above that and become their own thing. But in general, when a culture is not about getting educated or pursuing certain careers or just having a good structure foundation of family. If you don't have that, then you're just going to be stuck where you're at and never go beyond that.
Yeah. And somebody made the comment here that said people have the right to not assimilate, and I agree with you. You don't have to assimilate. But
yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah. But if you in this country, unfortunately, if you don't assimilate to some extent, you're going to have a harder time. Right.
Well, pretty much. Well, there is no culture to assimilate, because America, again, being the uniqueness
there is.
of it,
I would agree with you
really
there. I would say that there's white Anglo-Saxon culture, and what I mean by that is the values of white Anglo-Saxon culture.
Yeah, I guess
the combination. Obviously, you have different people
Christian
who are not that, but everyone strives to at least hold those values, right? If they want to, you kind of have to if you want to make it to. I mean, first of all, the language,
language. I understand that.
That's a huge part of it. Now, you don't have to be a Christian, to succeed, right? But just some of the values that, and this was brought up in one of the earlier podcasts that we had with a conservative, actually, we had on Latino conservative, actually. And he talked about the difference between, the Spanish culture. And what I mean by Spanish is not Mexican culture. I mean from Spain.
Oh, yeah.
You saw that, right?
Yeah. I remember that.
That was a really good point. And I was like, that's why a lot of us, we pretty much have the shittier stock of European come to.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not that it's the culture of again, just working hard and just living in the moment and not really caring about the future aspects of your life. Or because I mean, like to this day, I still don't have life insurance. Like I don't have, and I know I should have, but it's something that's never taught within our family. It was never spoken of, or it's always just work hard, study if you're going to study, or just study. Like there's no guidance to just study. Like study what? Just study.
There's another question here by Dust James. He's firing away the questions, man. I'm glad he is. He said, "Do you negate the existence of systemic oppression? Who controls the media and who influences culture and ideology?"
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again, please?
Yeah, sorry. So, do you negate the existence of systemic oppression?
Do I negate the existence of systemic oppression?
Yes.
Let's see. So by systemic oppression, certain rules were applied from people who trying to govern a state in a way that is not or equal to where they're coming from. So what I'm saying is that I don't negate it may seem like there is systemic oppression. It may seem because certain, let's talk about like crime. Let's talk about crime. So when they're talking about crime, it's there's that famous 13% that everybody brings up that Black people are like 10% of the population, but they commit. I'm sorry, 13% of the population, but 50% of the crime. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not that the rules or the laws were meant to punish or to make this happen. It just so happened that the culture that was brought upon made it seem that way. It's not a systemic thing. It's a byproduct of the culture of which a lot of Southern Blacks were exposed to. Same thing with like we were saying earlier about the shitty Spanish culture that we inherited from them. It's not that the rules were meant to punish us that way. It's that because our values, certain values or behaviors are of a certain way that do not apply to the current, I guess, social norms or systems. Mm-hmm. It's not that it's targeted. It's just, again, the byproduct of that causation. But I really don't think. I mean, if you really believe that there's systemic oppression in that sense, I really don't see it without any type of like hard evidence of actual legislation or anything like that. I can be, like I said, it can seem that way, and I'm not claiming to be knowledgeable on it, obviously, because if I'm here like mumbling, try to answer the question. And
good question. That was a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question, but I really don't. Okay, to answer his question, if I say like there isn't. It's just it's on us, because if we put the fault to the government, to the society, we're never going to get out of our hole. Like and then, so it is on us. It is up to us to raise our children to be better than us, to pursue and to be curious and open-minded, and to not suffer from identifying themselves as a certain group or a certain tribe or a certain thing. Like we're the only tribe that I think we should be associated with is just being human beings.
You're like Metamorphosis, that's he's all about that human being culture.
Just being human beings and not judge the person, again, not by the color of the skin, but of their actions and their behavior. The whole Martin Luther King quote that I butchered.
All right, so I guess I want to answer that question too, and I want to address the last comment that Dust made. He said redlining, over policing, lack of access to services and education, discrimination and hiring, etc. When it comes to systemic oppression, I think that historically we did have systemic oppression, and I wouldn't say it was so much intentional, and not even that sounds controversial. The people who were in power happened to be white, right? And people who were not in power happened to be of color. So it was more of an economic thing, and for the longest it has been, it still is, but for the longest it was tied to race, right? Or ethnicity. And that's why, obviously, I'm not denying racism either. I mean, it existed and they still exist, but as where I say it doesn't exist anymore with legislation. So we have the same opportunities. Yes, again, I'm not gonna deny that we were dealt some pretty fucked up cards, from the beginning, but the opportunities, if we go out and look for them, if we network right, I mean, that's something that we and it's not our fault either. I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't know. Like I said, I mean, a lot of us come from immigrants and all you know how to do is just work, and so it is up to us to pass down that knowledge to our seeds, right? As a father, that's what I'm trying to do with my daughter, and hopefully she's able to do the same thing with her kids, when she gets older, and to be able to benefit from the system that originally wasn't made for us, but in 2021, I think we can benefit from it.
Yeah, and I just thought of a point too. Like if it was, the system was made to kind of keep down minorities, then do you have to explain the success of not just Jewish people but Asians as well?
Yeah, they're the top ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not white. It wasn't meant for them. They're basically foreigners. Like most of us during the antebellum times, during slavery, a lot of the people who were successful in the South were foreigners. There were Germans. There were the Jews that came here. It was like even in New York, when you get the top business owners or people who graduate with high degrees, they're all Africans from Africa.
Yeah, I said that is another thing to consider.
Yeah, and
Africans and Black Americans.
Those people are underrepresented in the crime statistics. It's all American Black criminals, but never African.
That is
and I get that. Huh?
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, if that were the case, if that's because racism or anything like that, then they also would have been victims of that, and they're just clearly not. Again, it's not. I don't think. Again, it's a racial thing. You spoke about redlining as well, but because a lot when it comes to poverty and lower class, mostly it is minorities.
Yes.
But it's not because the systems were placed in there to keep them there. It's just that's how it was in the beginning.
Yep.
And we just haven't gone over that hump of not being that. So when certain Europeans came through and they brought their culture, that I'm talking about like the main British Europeans and during that time, because
they exported other Europeans too. They exported the Irish, they exported Germans.
Yeah,
like
so
said,
Irish again. Yeah, so I'm talking about like when they immigrated after they started colonizing here. You had the Irish who came in abundance, the Italians, and a lot of them were looked down upon.
Yep.
Nobody wanted Irish people when they first arrived here. They were considered to be, because their culture was different from the English culture.
Yeah.
So they weren't compatible with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's not targeting a specific.
It's more cultural than ethnicity, I would say.
Yeah, it is a big cultural difference, and culture isn't tied to race. Culture can be adopted by anybody. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to succeed, you need to adopt that same culture that breeds that success.
Yes.
But you can still have your traditions and everything like that if you want to. No, nothing is stopping you from having that with you. But it's just a matter of how the culture that you were brought up in, and the type of like work ethic that you were given. If I lost my train of thought, but you
Makes
kind of get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Like it's culture. It's driven by culture. A lot of things are driven by culture. And you were saying like, well, you mentioned earlier about like controls culture and everything like that. Well, obviously, you got the mainstream stuff that is going on, and all that is pretty much aimed towards the common the lowest common denominator, which whatever it is. And I don't think it's controlled. I don't think it's I think it's more market stuff. Like that's what sells, because they can try to push something else. I mean, why would they want to push what they're pushing now? Like if they want a better America, if they want it like an ethno state or something, or if they want to control behavior, you think they control something more palatable to kind of like, you know, have the like have what China has. Like they have complete control of the media, and they won't show certain things, and they'll show what they want to show. Like it's not here. It's just here is driven by money.
Pretty much, yeah. And I mean, there was another question that talks about the racial wage gap, and my answer to that would be
same thing, culture.
Yeah, it goes back to
I
culture.
mean, I mean, how many blacks do you know that want to be like engineers?
Yeah,
and they don't want to be. And I'm saying again, generalizing. I have to put that in front. Not a lot of like even Hispanics. I'll do with that. Like I don't know a lot of Hispanics who want to be like lawyers. Or
they might, but they just don't know how to get there, because again,
because we don't have that.
And there are, but again, it goes back to there's a constant wave of immigrants coming over and over, and we have a lot of us have the culture of the immigrants, right? And then we, you know, create our culture here when we're born here, so we're stuck between two worlds. And again, a lot of it's the story repeats itself. So it looks like Latinos are not succeeding as a whole because of that, right? But if you follow a family for generations, you'll see that, you know, that they're doing okay if they were able to adapt.
And we usually stay there. We stay in that just almost like lower middle class state of living, and we're compliant with that most of the time. Like we just have our family, we do our job. Our job pays the house and the bills, and we're good. There's no need unless there's a change, unless there's like somebody who wants to strive for more.
That's a good point.
And that the person, which is why you see a lot of people like pushing, like there's always one kid in the family who's like the kid who's going to go to college. Always.
When
they always push the older brother, some slack off or whatever, and then the middle child, he's doing all right. He has a job at Starbucks, so he makes decent money, so he's doing his own thing. But there's always like the one child that they push.
Yeah,
and it should be all of that. It should be the child that they always push. It should be with all of them. It's again culture, it's personality, it's based on the person, on their behavior and their personality. But I do strongly believe that it is like a cultural thing. Like
and what I would also say is, you know, as you're talking about culture, and you mentioned family, right? It's more common for our culture to value family time over, you know, putting in
work time,
extra work. I mean, we'll work hard, you know, like, I mean, I'm not saying that, but a lot of white people, and I would say men specifically, are more willing to spend more time at work than with their families.
Yeah.
And that also contributes to that wage gap, because, you know, that's why you have, I mean, you see that like the family structure with white folks is completely different than with, you know, people of color, you know, culture, right? They value money
they disregard their family. They do have like a family center, but it's money. It's just way more different than ours. Like we like to just bunch up and just have big parties and everything, which is amazing. I love that about our culture. Yeah, that's one of the best, because that the whole dynamic of having your cousin be in your life. Like I don't think, I'm not a white person, so I don't think white people have that. Like, oh yeah, my cousin is coming over to have dinner. Like it's always just core family or friends. It's never like distant relatives. And and again, we tend to stay in one place and never leave. And with you have Anglo families or white families, they tend to go with the work is at, where the job is at. You know, moving to New York for that writing job, or going to Harvard for you know, to study engineering or whatever. So they move. Like that's also what we need to do too. We need to move the fuck away from where we're at.
True. That's true. We don't take we don't take those risks, you know, that we should be taking. And it's not about working hard, because we work hard. We work harder probably than anybody.
Definitely.
You know,
yeah, no doubt.
That's not the issue. The issue is that, you know, we're not taking those risks, like you said. I mean, like, how many of us actually go out and you know, try to be lawyers? Again, we don't know, right? So we get scared. You know, we
yeah, and again, it's not like a popular thing that we don't have family members who are lawyers, or it's not something that is pushed. And I guess it all depends on just how you are. If you want to become a lawyer, fantastic.
Yep.
But it's just not a thing in our culture. Should we push? Should we be forced? No, but what we should push is just openness, willing to explore new ideas and to go beyond what we know. That this is why I advocate a lot of being open-minded and just being curious about things. That's how you discover other passions that you may otherwise never have gone discovered if you weren't open to them.
Yep. All right. Well, that is it for today, man. We covered a lot of things. This is the longest episode that I've had, and I'm not shocked, just because, I mean, you and I can have these conversations
all night.
Hours, you know, a whole life. We've actually been having them, you know, so now it's actually being filmed. A lot of people were active in the comments, you know.
I'm glad. I'm happy. I hope they got something, and I hope I can learn something from them as well.
I'm gonna give some shout outs. So we had Quantave's on here. Shout out to you. Lord Nemesis, shout out to you. Cool King, that also AK the Chicano Marketer is on here. Dust James, he also has his own channel as well. So thank you very much for hopping on here and you know, asking questions, making commentary. This is exactly why I started.
Thank you for giving us your time. I know we're a bunch of nobodies, but I appreciate that you
don't even start with that shit. Don't even start with
that. Well, I'm just saying, like, when somebody gives you the time when you're talking and they're listening, that's always appreciated. And I'm happy that people, you know, if they give the time to listen, cool. If not, cool. If you know, if I hope I at least brought some new idea that I planted in your head. Hopefully that someday it will bloom, just like how Daniel bloomed into a beautiful capitalist pig that I turned him into.
It's taken forever, but he finally got there, right?
Yes, this is the Chinese way of being patient and then finally having something to pay out.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, like I said, I was there, man. For everybody who's listening, I was a hardcore leftist socialist, and we would always debate, you know. But like I said, I've said this many times. What made me, you know, change ultimately is becoming a father. Becoming a father, when you have to provide for somebody, you got to make a choice whether you go and protest or you go make money.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I got to find a way to provide for my seed, you know, and I think that's the best way to do it. That doesn't mean everyone's going to agree with me, and that's fine. But if you have questions, you know, for those of you who have not followed us, where can they find you, Ricardo?
So you can find me at Instagram, I guess, is the one that I usually most. You can go to my personal, which is Ricardo3G, at Ricardo3G, or you can do my other, which is kind of my gaming account, but not really. It's also kind of like personal, but it's just, I keep it separate for separate reasons. But if you want, it's at me without me without _mu.
Thank you. And myself, obviously, I am on raza.stand.podcast for the page. But if you want to actually follow me on my own personal page, it's Flow DCM. That's my personal page. If you care about my life, now that's fine too. You know, if you just want to see my own you know, political stuff, it's just the Raza Stand page.
Yeah, I keep it separate. I don't want politics and shit mixing me with it. It's never good when all that shit is combined. That's why I like keeping it separate, and that's
why that's
the best idea to do. Also, get off Facebook. Everybody, just delete your Facebook account, please. Don't give that any more data. Also, I forget what I had a thing to say too, but I forget. Whatever.
Well, again, thanks a lot for jumping on, and I would have to, you know, I'm gonna say it out here, and people are probably not gonna like it, but probably the best episode I've had so far. You know, it's the longest, you know, and didn't feel like almost 3 hours, but two hours and 40 minutes to be exact. A lot of things we covered, you know, and like I said, I'm not shocked that we went this far. And you know, like I said, he's active on the lives too, Ricardo.
I'm really there, dabbling.
Cool dude. But if anybody else on here has Instagram, I think I've seen some of you on here. You know, we have lives on Thursdays. We talk about different things, different topics. Yesterday we talked about Gavin Newsom. You know, I'm from California, so you know, we talked about that, the recon, whatnot. But every Friday, you know, we'll probably have an episode with somebody. I might take a little break after football season begins. Like I said, I'm a huge fanatic of it, so it's going to be hard to do all three. As a family man, it's hard to juggle everything. So, but thank you very much for those of you who tuned in and actually, you know, made some comments and asked some questions. Any last comments before we end this episode, Ricardo?
Nothing. I just want to say thank you again for having me. Thank you for the viewers who stayed, who tolerated me. Yeah, just Ron Paul 2024.
Oh, you're still going with him, right? You're still going.
I'm like holding off. Like, please, God, give them vitality, or
wait,
at least
said, please,
give
God.
us a little.
Wait, so you're not an atheist?
I don't give a fuck out for that. Like, please, Lord, you're there. Give him the youth, the fountain of youth. Hopefully by then we'll find it and we'll revive him to his prime.
For sure. All right. Thank you very much. And on that note, this is Flo reporting from Raza Stand Podcast. Take a stand to understand, people.
To understand.